Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having a good Wednesday. Playoff polls came out yesterday night. Let's go ahead and look at them. So yeah, welcome back to the tailgate. I brought up in my previous video that with the playoff polls coming out, I'm gonna start posting the poll comparisons separately, and I'm gonna do them Wednesday morning, as I was correct. The polls do come out Tuesday night. So I do like the polls, but of course there's some differences with my poll and the playoff polls. So let's get into it. I think it should be fun. Now, of course, when looking at the polls, you can tell the difference. The ESPN quality compared to the quality of Google Sheets. Don't worry, with me having an extra day to make these videos, I'm definitely gonna make my polls look a little nicer. I'm gonna at least try. But we're gonna start off with our top four. And one thing I love is the playoff committee thinks that Ohio State's the best team in the country, and so do I. So they're both at number one, and then Georgia's at number two in both the polls. The only difference in the top four is that Florida State and Michigan are swapped. I have Michigan at 4, Florida State at 3, and that's vice versa for the polls. But same 4 teams, it's just that the top 2 are the exact same. Looking at the rest of the top 10, it's very similar with one minor difference at the bottom. Washington is at 5 in both polls, Oregon is 6 in both polls, Texas is 7 in both polls, Alabama is 8 in both polls, and then around the bottom is where we have the differences. I have Penn State at 9, whereas the polls have Oklahoma at 9. Oklahoma's loss to Kansas was pretty bad, so I dropped Oklahoma down way more than I think the polls did. I guess they considered Kansas a better team than we gave them credit for. So I guess that win with Texas, that win against Texas really keeps Oklahoma in as a top 10. But that Kansas loss was pretty bad, so I don't have them at 9. And as a matter of fact, they're not in my top 10, as both me and the polls have Ole Miss at 10, but then the difference is, of course, is that they have Penn State at 11 and I have Oklahoma at 11. I brought it up when I was explaining what the difference with 9 was. Same difference there. I just thought Oklahoma had a worse loss in my opinion. That loss to Kansas was bad, and their only loss to an unranked team, while Penn State's one loss is to the best team in the country, so I think it's a little more fair. Looking at 11 through 15, it's a lot of the same teams, just ranked a little differently. I brought up that I have Oklahoma at 11. I'm gonna skip past that since I explained it earlier. They do have Missouri at 12. This is a weird one in my opinion, as Missouri is ranked higher than LSU, yet their one loss is to LSU. And Missouri has looked incredible since I lost to LSU. They've had some big wins against Kentucky mainly, but I don't think they're better than LSU. And I mean, LSU proved it because they beat them. So I just don't agree. For me, I have Notre Dame at 12. I think Notre Dame's the best 2-loss team in the country. They have a lot of impressive wins to prove it. So as of right now, I think they're the best 2-loss team in the country. But it's very slim, as I have LSU at 13 compared to 14 in the polls. Not too much of a difference. I think that mainly comes from just where Missouri is ranked. They have Missouri ranked 12, I have Missouri ranked below LSU. I think 13 to 14 isn't that big of a difference. Of course, how good LSU is unknown. We don't know until they beat Bama. So I think 14 is a good spot. And I think it would be okay as if just Missouri was ranked under them, but them being ranked below Missouri, especially with LSU beating Missouri, I just don't get that ranking. But I have LSU at 13, and then I have Louisville at 14 compared to 13, so a little bit of a swap there. Not a huge difference. I do think Louisville's better than Missouri though. Louisville's big win last week against Duke was super impressive, and I think it was enough that with Missouri on their bye week and just not having a ranked win, I gave Louisville the jump over Missouri. So for that means I have Missouri at 15 compared to 12 for the playoff polls. Again, Missouri doesn't have a super big ranked win, or at least not as many as Louisville has. Louisville destroyed Notre Dame, and then they just destroyed Duke, while Missouri's only ranked wins came against K-State and Kentucky, who are ranked way lower than Louisville's teams. So that mainly explains the difference, and that's 11 through 15. The bottom 10 of the polls are where things get interesting. We're going to first start off with 16 through 20. At 16, I have Air Force. Air Force has been undefeated. They've been playing really well. since they jumped in the rankings. And with a lot of teams losing, I gave them a very sizable jump. The polls have them ranked 25th, below a one-loss Tulane. I'm okay with them being ranked that low. I know the committee is very harsh and pretty strict on these group of 5 teams, but I just think being ranked below Tulane, in my opinion, doesn't look that good, especially with how bad Tulane's been playing recently. They are winning, but they're not playing as good as Air Force has been playing. I don't mind Air Force being ranked low, again, like I said, but I think that low, and especially being ranked under Tulane, it doesn't look that good in my opinion. At 17, I have Utah compared to 18 in the polls. Not a huge difference, but I still think Utah is better than Tennessee. I know Utah had a terrible loss, but to me they've been more impressive than Tennessee, and that's why I have Tennessee ranked at 18 instead. So it's just a swap there. Again, Tennessee doesn't have really any amazing wins on their resume. They do play Georgia late in the season, so maybe that's their big win coming up. But as of right now, I do think Utah is better than Tennessee. At 19, I have Oregon State compared to 16. That mainly comes from me, with me having Oregon State ranked lower. It just comes from how bad the loss to Arizona was. I thought it was a pretty bad loss. I think that Arizona is better than the record said. I said that in my video, but they still lost to an unranked Arizona team when Oregon State was looking like a dark horse, not only Pac-12 contender, but playoff contender at the same time. So I just think it was pretty bad for Oregon State, which is why I have them ranked lower. And around this section at 20, I have Kansas. They're ranked 21st in the polls, not a huge difference. I give Kansas a little bit of a more higher jump for beating Oklahoma, but it's not huge of a difference to talk about, so that wraps up the 16 through 20. Finishing off with the bottom 5, I have Tulane at 21 compared to 24 in the playoff polls. Not a huge difference. Tulane hasn't looked too great the last 2 weeks, so I can understand them being ranked a little lower than mine, but they're still winning and teams are losing, so that's why Tulane mainly keeps going up in my polls. But again, not a huge difference. I think it's completely understandable with them being at 24. I just don't understand them being ranked lower than Air Force, being ranked higher than Air Force. That's the only thing I don't understand in my opinion. I think 24 is a good ranking for them though. At 22, I have USC. USC barely escaped Cal, and then they had 2 bad losses in a row. So they're ranked 20th in the playoff polls. So again, not a huge difference, but I don't think USC is better than Tulane right now with just how they're playing. USC looks like they can definitely lose to Tulane again, in my opinion, just with how they're playing. Tulane hasn't been playing that great, but neither is USC. And USC's been losing unlike Tulane, so that's kind of my reason there. At 23, I have Oklahoma State. They're ranked 21st in the playoff polls. Not a huge difference, not really much I can go to. Oklahoma State's been playing really good recently, especially after looking terrible early in the season. Ollie Gordon has been amazing for him. He's the leading rusher in college football. And with him, and of course they had that big game against Oklahoma, they got Bedlam. That can be proof of just how good Oklahoma State really is. But I think the ranking is good, 22, 23, not a huge difference, so I agree with it. At 24, I have UCLA. UCLA is ranked a lot higher in the playoff polls. They're ranked 19th, I'm ranked 24th. That mainly is because I didn't have UCLA ranked for a few weeks while the polls still did have them ranked. So I think UCLA is a little worse than the polls give them credit for, but they're still a good team. They're still 6-2, and they're still beating these Pac-12 teams behind a really solid defense. So I have no reason to not have them in the rankings. I just think they should be ranked a little bit lower than the polls, but to each their own. And to round off my polls, I have James Madison in my rankings finally. They're 8-0, they keep winning. It sucks I can't play in a bowl game, even if they do go undefeated. The NCAA definitely has changed that rule because James Madison probably will go undefeated. And I imagine the committee probably has them right outside the top 25. They have Air Force there at 25, which I just don't agree with. And for me, I don't agree with K-State being ranked. I think K-State will be right there at 26 for me if there was one. I don't agree with K-State being ranked because although they have had a pretty impressive last 2 to 3 wins, I think it's a 2-game win streak they're on. With that loss to Oklahoma State, I want to wait at least 1 or 2 more weeks before I'm fully set on K-State back in my rankings. But I would say I agree with most of these polls. There's just a few spots in the rankings I don't agree with. But outside of that, the only big difference is that there's one team they have in the rankings that I don't, and I have one team in the rankings that they don't, and that's K-State for theirs and James Madison for mine. And that wraps up the poll comparison. If you want to look at the polls more in depth, feel free to go back and pause and look at them more. But overall, that's a recap. Like I said, I know it's a pretty short video, but with the playoff polls coming out, I want to look at what the most powerful poll is during that time. But I hope you enjoyed the video, unless I have your team ranked where you don't like it, but don't care. That's how they all do it. That's how all the people in the committee do it. They don't care about you. On a serious note, I do care about y'all. I love that y'all supporting and watching the videos. But yeah, like, favorite, subscribe if you had. And guess what? 2 videos in one day. I'll be back with a prediction video tonight.